Today is Sunday, July 7th, 2024, and I would like to ask you the question, do you see yourself as an oppressor? What is an oppressor? I decided to go and break out my collegiate dictionary because they change and revise the dictionaries regularly. This one was copyrighted in 1988, but I was using it as a college student from 1989 until 1993 to look at this definition for oppression. And the significance of these revisions is that they give all of these explanations for phonics and how to phonetically pronounce things so that it stays aligned with the current agenda. Whatever new dialects or slang words they're going to be using, they have to put those in the beginning of the book. They have to map it out. But anyway, oppression, an unjust or crude exercise of authority or power, something that oppresses. Oppress, to suppress, crush, or burden by abuse of power or authority, to burden spiritually or mentally, oppressive, unreasonably burdensome, or severe, and then they give the example, legislation, tyrannical, overwhelming or depressing to the spirit or senses. Do you consider yourself an oppressor? There's no mention of land ownership. There's no mention of money, of inheritance in the word oppressive or oppressor. Are you an oppressor? Yesterday, I presented the question that if to be from America, you are called an American, then if to be from Africa, you would be called an African. And that if to be called a Virginian means you are from Virginia, then that means to be called Nigerian means you are from Nigeria. What then is the color of Africans? And I want you to consider your answer to that question as you watch this clip.
One of the things that I did in the last legislative session was to introduce a bill to name a portion of Silver Star Road, the portion that comes through OCOEE. It will now be the Julius July Perry Memorial Highway. It's a beginning and it's an acknowledgement. By no means will make those families whole, because when their ancestors left, they left behind land, just as they left behind the bodies of people in this graveyard that I talk about. And what happened to the land that they would have inherited? And home ownership and land builds generational wealth.
How can you get that back? Like, it was stolen, so how do you get it back? And a building might be standing there, or a house might be there.
I plan to continue to push for reparations. I think it's important, and we've done it before with Rosewood.
I see a city that I still enjoy living in, but there still needs to be some change. The one thing that I wish would happen is that
I want you to pause right here and make a wish to see if what you wish for will align with what she says.
The one thing that I wish would happen is that there's so many new people in this community over the 17 years that I wish they had a way to get more involved. New people in this community over the 17 years that I wish they had a way to get more involved, a way to get more involved, a way to get more involved. And there are ways, but I wish we could let them all know, get involved so that we can make changes. Know that this is what has happened, but what ideas do you have to make this a better community?
Well, I'm hopeful that people will come together. Even now, there are some divisions that I think need to be broken down. There are some divisions that I think need to be broken down so that people can come together and be proud of the fact that they live in OCOEE.
Me as a Black person, my ancestors, everybody before me, we've been trying to fight and say the same thing a million times. It's time for the people that were the oppressors, that were associated to the oppressors, to make a stand. Were the oppressors that were associated to the oppressors to make a stand. Were the oppressors that were associated to the oppressors to make a stand and say, this is gonna stop.
Do you ever wonder how some people are able to make a savior out of someone who has created every perverse version of abuse over a people that you could possibly imagine, who refuses to be held accountable, and who seems to get away with murder? Do you wonder what kind of mindset would need to martyr an individual as a saint who in life had created this level of trauma?
You had the Browns,
and then also Jack and Annie Hammeter family. Those are the earliest families that we can tell.
And who was July Perry?
July Perry was a very powerful Black man. Very powerful Black man. Very powerful Black man.
July Perry lived here and was a businessman, a prosperous individual who would contract laborers to come into West Orange County to harvest the citrus grove. Would contract laborers to come into West Orange County to harvest the citrus grove.
Mose Norman was a friend and neighbor of July Perry's, who was also a labor broker. Mose Norman was a little bit more ostentatious about his wealth. He drove a very nice car. He made no apologies about being successful.
In 1920, there was a thriving African American community, almost half of the city of OCOEE, based on the census.
What's happening in Florida months leading up to that election day back in 1920?
Leading up to that time, Black people were becoming equally or more successful than the whites.
But I would say there's three factors that are really starting to add to this pot. It's like a big boiling cauldron. And what those are start with World War I. Of course, World War I, a lot of young Black men go to World War I. And part of the belief was that if we go and we fight for this country, we're proving we're invested. If we go and we fight for this country, we're proving we're invested. If we go and we fight for this country, we're proving we're invested. We are here, we're fighting like everybody else. If we come home, maybe there will be better equality.
You had the Republicans courting the Black vote.
Black women during this time, they're the organizers. I mean, they are really starting to say, like, we deserve this, and when our men come home, it's about equality.
I need for people to keep in mind that the purpose of encouraging people to vote is voter registration, which helps census taking and therefore population record keeping.
Why? He said, OCOEE is not a place for a brother. And that launched the organizing of Democracy Forum.
The city manager was a gentleman named Ellis Shapiro. He's since passed away, but Mr. Shapiro somehow sent a message to me that they were interested in forming a racial reconciliation task force. Essentially what the white people on the task force said to us is that they literally said these words: you need to let sleeping dogs lie, which we were okay until outside agitators came in and started stirring up trouble.
And my work with the Reconciliation Task Force involved finding the grave of July Perry. Now remember what his contributions had been. Now remember what his contributions had been. Now remember what his contributions had been and the role that he played in the city of OCOEE. And he lies in an unmarked pauper's grave. Things that are painful are things that people would many times not want to dwell on. I do know that there are many people who said that it just did not happen. And my question then is, how do you explain the census records?
After becoming a member of the Human Relations Diversity Board, it had not settled in my heart, in my conscience, that an entire population of African Americans had been deprived of their lives, their lands. The mission of the board at that point in time was to be a go-between the community and the city government. The board was superficial. I think that attitude prevailed probably until 2018. We did MLK. We did Black History Celebration. And other than that, we had no other outreach into the community.
We have to own up to our past. We have to truly honor our past without any politics being involved. Get rid of the stigmatisms of old OCOEE versus new OCOEE. And I think that once those things start to happen, we'll start to change the stigmatisms of racism that we've dealt with for so long, for 100 years.
Who protects biological women and their children? Are there any men left who will protect biological women and their children, who want to make a home and a family with biological women and who are willing to protect them so that they can enjoy each other and be healthy and happy and feel safe? Or do you just want to keep fighting for reparations, paper, and land that does not belong to you? 2024.